It was a quiet Saturday afternoon, the kind where the world seemed to move at a slower pace. The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting golden rays over the small town of Maplewood. Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood actor known for his roles in blockbuster movies and his down-to-earth personality, had just wrapped up a long day of filming. He was tired but content, craving something simple, a cheeseburger and fries from McDonald's. It wasn't often that he got to step away from the glitz and glamour of his career, so he relished these rare moments of normalcy. Keanu pulled into the parking lot of the local McDonald's, a modest building with bright red and yellow signs that stood out against the blue sky. He parked his car far from the entrance, not wanting to draw attention to himself. Dressed casually in a gray hoodie and faded jeans, he slipped on a pair of sunglasses before stepping inside. Despite his fame, Keanu preferred blending in, enjoying the simplicity of being just another face in the crowd. The restaurant buzzed with activity. Families sat together at sticky booths, laughing and sharing fries. Teenagers huddled near the soda machines, scrolling through their phones. A group of construction workers occupied one corner, their boots leaving faint scuff marks on the tiled floor. The smell of sizzling burgers filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of French fries. It was comforting, almost nostalgic, and Keanu felt a sense of calm wash over him. He joined the line, tapping his fingers lightly on the counter as he waited. His mind wandered as he glanced around the room. There were kids running between tables, parents trying to keep up with them, and elderly couples sharing milkshakes. It was a snapshot of everyday life, untouched by the pressures of fame or fortune. Keanu loved it. For someone who spent most of his time in front of cameras or surrounded by fans, this felt like a breath of fresh air. As he reached the front of the line, a young boy caught his eye. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old, with messy brown hair and wide, curious eyes. He stood a few feet away, clutching a toy car tightly in one hand while nervously fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Something about the boy's demeanor made Keanu pause. While other children laughed and played, this little boy seemed lost in thought, his expression serious and guarded. For a moment, Keanu wondered if the boy recognized him. After all, he'd starred in countless films that families watched together. But instead of approaching him with excitement or asking for an autograph, the boy simply stared, his lips pressed into a thin line. Then, without warning, he took a hesitant step forward, his tiny sneakers squeaking against the floor. Keanu knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to the child's level. "Hey there," he said softly, offering a warm smile. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as though checking for someone. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm Tommy," he murmured, clutching his toy car even tighter. His gaze darted around the room again, and Keanu noticed a flicker of fear in his eyes. It was subtle, but undeniable. Something was wrong. Before Keanu could ask any more questions, Tommy leaned in close, standing on his tiptoes to reach the actor's ear. His small hands trembled as he whispered, his words barely audible over the hum of conversations and the clatter of trays. But what he said next sent a jolt of alarm through Keanu's body. The cheerful atmosphere of the McDonald's faded instantly, replaced by a heavy tension that weighed heavily on the actor's chest. Keanu straightened up slowly, his heart racing. He looked down at Tommy, whose big brown eyes now brimmed with tears. The boy's lower lip quivered and he shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. Keanu placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, trying to offer some comfort. "It's okay, buddy," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. "You did the right thing by telling me." Tommy sniffled, nodding slightly. He didn't fully understand the gravity of what he'd just revealed, but he trusted the kind stranger who had listened to him. Around them, the bustle of the McDonald's continued unchanged. No one else seemed to notice the quiet exchange that had just taken place. To the casual observer, it might have looked like a simple interaction between a celebrity and a fan. But Keanu knew better. This wasn't just a random encounter. It was a cry for help, delivered in the softest of whispers. Without wasting another second, Keanu pulled out his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen as he dialed 911, his focus sharp and unwavering. As he explained the situation, to the operator he kept one arm protectively around Tommy, shielding him from the noise and chaos of the restaurant. The boy buried his face in Keanu's hoodie, finding solace in the presence of the man who had chosen to act when others might have turned away. In that moment, Keanu wasn't a movie star or a public figure. He was simply a person who had heard a child's plea and decided to do something about it. And as he held Tommy close, waiting for help to arrive, he couldn't shake the feeling that this chance meeting would change both of their lives forever. Keanu's mind raced as he held the phone to his ear, his voice calm but urgent. He explained the situation to the 911 operator as clearly as he could, relaying Tommy's whispered words without hesitation. "There's a young boy here who says his mother is being hurt," he said, glancing down at Tommy, who was still clinging to him. "He thinks she might be seriously injured. We're at the McDonald's on Main Street, and he mentioned they live nearby." The operator assured him that help was on the way, asking Keanu to stay with the boy and gather any additional details he could. Keanu nodded, even though the operator couldn't see him, and crouched down again to meet Tommy's gaze. The little boy's eyes were wide with fear, his small body trembling slightly. Keanu's heart ached for him. He knew how hard it must have been for Tommy to speak up, especially in a crowded place like this. "Tommy," Keanu began gently, keeping his tone soft and reassuring. "You're so brave for telling me what's happening. Can you tell me where you live? The police and doctors will need to know so they can help your mom." Tommy hesitated, his fingers tightening around the toy car in his hand. For a moment, it seemed like he might not answer. But then, after taking a deep breath, he pointed toward the window. "It's right behind this place," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "We live in the big white building with the red door." Keanu followed Tommy's gaze, spotting the apartment complex just a short distance away. It was an older building, its paint chipped and faded, but it stood close enough that help would arrive quickly once the authorities were alerted. Still, every second counted, and Keanu knew they couldn't afford to waste any time. He gave the operator the address, double-checking the details to make sure nothing was missed. As he hung up the phone, Keanu turned his full attention back to Tommy. The boy looked smaller than ever, his shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear. Keanu reached out and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You're doing great, buddy," he said with a warm smile. "Help is coming. Your mom is going to be okay because you told me what was happening." That took a lot of courage. Tommy's lip quivered and tears welled up in his eyes. "I didn't want to say anything," he admitted in a shaky voice, "but I didn't know what else to do. Daddy gets really mad sometimes, and Mommy cries a lot." Keanu's chest tightened at the child's words. He wanted to ask more questions to understand exactly what Tommy had witnessed, but he didn't want to overwhelm him. Instead, he focused on keeping the boy calm and distracted until the authorities arrived. "You did the right thing by talking to me," Keanu reassured him. "Sometimes we need to tell someone when something doesn't feel right, and now, because of you, people are coming to help." To lighten the mood, Keanu glanced at the toy car in Tommy's hand. "Is that your favorite?" he asked, pointing to the tiny vehicle. Tommy nodded, clutching it protectively. "Yeah, it's a race car," he said, his voice brightening just a little. "Mommy got it for me last week." "That's awesome," Keanu replied, smiling. "Race cars are the coolest. Do you think it's fast enough to win a big race?" Tommy's face lit up for the first time since their encounter. "It's super fast," he exclaimed, holding the car up proudly. "It can go zoom zoom all the way to the moon." Keanu chuckled, grateful for the brief moment of levity. "Wow, all the way to the moon, that is fast." He leaned in conspiratorially. "Maybe one day you'll build a real rocket and take it there yourself." Tommy giggled, his earlier fears momentarily forgotten. For a few precious minutes, the two of them talked about cars, rockets, and adventures to faraway places. Keanu made sure to keep the conversation light, steering clear of anything that might remind Tommy of why they were there. But even as he joked and laughed with the boy, his thoughts kept drifting back to the gravity of the situation. Minutes later, The sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder as emergency vehicles approached. Keanu stood up, still holding Tommy's hand, and guided him toward the entrance of the McDonald's. Outside, flashing lights illuminated the parking lot as police cars and ambulances screeched to a halt. Officers spilled out of their vehicles, their movements swift and purposeful. Paramedics grabbed their gear and rushed toward the apartment building, guided by Keanu's directions. One of the officers approached Keanu and Tommy, introducing himself as Officer Martinez. "Mr. Reeves?" he asked, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Thank you for calling this in. Can you tell me what happened?" Keanu nodded, stepping aside so Tommy could speak directly to the officer. "This is Tommy," he explained. "He came to me at the restaurant and told me his mom might be hurt. He gave me the address and I called 911 right away." Officer Martinez knelt down to Tommy's level, his expression kind but serious. "Hey there, champ," he said gently. "Can you tell me what's going on? Is your daddy home right now?" Tommy shook his head vigorously. "No, he left, but mommy won't wake up." The officer exchanged a glance with Keanu, silently acknowledging the seriousness of the situation. "Okay, buddy," he said, standing up. "We're going to check on your mom and make sure she's safe. You did the right thing by telling. Mr. Reeves, stay here with him while we go inside, okay?" Tommy nodded, gripping Keanu's hand tightly. As the officers hurried toward the apartment building, Keanu led Tommy to a nearby bench, sitting down beside him. The boy was quiet now, his earlier excitement replaced by worry. Keanu wrapped an arm around his shoulders, offering silent support. "They're going to help her, right?" Tommy asked softly, looking up at Keanu with tear-filled eyes. "Yes, they are," Keanu replied firmly, meeting his gaze. "Your mom is strong and she has a lot of people rooting for her. She's going to get better because of you." Tommy sniffled, leaning into Keanu's side. The actor stayed with him, watching. As paramedics rushed in and out of the building, carrying medical equipment, a crowd had begun to gather, curious onlookers drawn by the commotion. Some recognized Keanu and snapped photos, whispering among themselves, but he ignored them completely. His focus remained entirely on Tommy, ensuring the boy felt safe and cared for during this terrifying ordeal. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the paramedics emerged from the building, wheeling a stretcher toward the ambulance. A woman lay on it, her face pale but peaceful. An oxygen mask covered her mouth and an IV drip was attached to her arm. Despite her fragile state, she appeared to be stable. Tommy gasped when he saw her, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mommy," he cried, jumping off the bench and running toward the stretcher. Keanu followed closely, making sure the boy didn't get too close to the paramedics. One of them knelt down to Tommy's level, speaking softly to reassure him. "She's going to be okay, little man," the paramedic said with a gentle smile. "We're taking good care of her. Do you want to ride with us to the hospital?" Tommy nodded eagerly, climbing into the ambulance with the help of the paramedics. Before following him inside, he turned to Keanu, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, mister," he said, his voice trembling, "for helping my mommy." Keanu smiled, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. "Anytime, buddy. You're the real hero today." As the ambulance doors closed and the vehicle sped away, Keanu stood there, watching it disappear into the distance. His heart was heavy, but also full. In that moment, he realized just how powerful a single act of kindness could be, and how much impact a brave little boy's whisper could have on the world. The ambulance carrying Tommy and his mother sped through the streets, its siren wailing as it cut through traffic. Inside, paramedics worked tirelessly to stabilize Sarah, Tommy's mom, whose condition remained critical but hopeful. She had been unconscious when they found her, lying on the floor of their apartment with bruises visible on her arms and face. The scene told a grim story, one of fear, pain, and desperation, but thanks to Tommy's bravery and Keanu's quick thinking, help had arrived just in time. Back at the apartment, police officers continued their investigation. They moved methodically through the cramped space, documenting every detail. Broken furniture littered the living room, a shattered coffee table, an overturned chair, and shards of glass sparkled ominously on the carpet. In the corner of the room, A half-empty bottle of alcohol sat on the kitchen counter, its presence speaking volumes about what might have unfolded earlier that day. One officer spotted a wallet near the door, its contents spilling out onto the floor. Among the items was a driver's license belonging to Sarah's partner, a man named Greg. His picture matched the description provided by neighbors who reported hearing loud arguments coming from the unit earlier. Officers quickly identified him as a person of interest and began searching for his whereabouts. Witnesses mentioned seeing him leave in a hurry shortly before emergency services arrived, heading east on foot. Meanwhile, outside the building, curious onlookers gathered, whispering among themselves about what could have happened. Some recognized Keanu Reeves standing nearby, still wearing his gray hoodie and looking visibly shaken. A few approached him cautiously, asking if he was okay or thanking him for stepping in, but Keanu politely declined interviews or attention, keeping his focus on the situation at hand. He spoke briefly with Officer Martinez, providing additional details about his conversation with Tommy and confirming the boy's account of events. As the hours passed, updates trickled in. Paramedics managed to stabilize Sarah during the ride to the hospital, ensuring she received immediate medical care upon arrival. Doctors discovered she had suffered multiple injuries, including a concussion and several fractured ribs, likely sustained during a violent altercation. While her condition was serious, she was expected to recover with proper treatment and rest. This news brought some relief to everyone involved, especially Tommy, who clung to the hope that his mother would soon wake up. At the police station, detectives pieced together more of the puzzle. Neighbors recounted frequent shouting matches between Sarah and Greg, describing escalating tensions over the past few months. One elderly woman, Mrs. Thompson, tearfully admitted she'd heard screams coming from the apartment earlier that morning but hadn't known what to do. "I thought about calling the police," she confessed, "but I didn't want to cause trouble. Now I wish I had." Her words weighed heavily on those around her, highlighting the importance of speaking up when something seems wrong. It was a lesson reinforced by Tommy's actions that may very well have saved his mother's life. Detectives also reviewed security footage from nearby businesses, hoping to track Greg's movements after he fled the scene. Within hours, they located him hiding in a friend's garage a few blocks away. When confronted, Greg initially resisted arrest, claiming innocence despite overwhelming evidence against him. He was taken into custody without further incident. News of the incident spread quickly throughout Maplewood. Local reporters descended on the area, eager to uncover the full story behind the dramatic rescue. Residents shared snippets of information, piecing together bits of gossip and speculation. Social media buzzed with posts praising Keanu Reeves for his role in saving Sarah and acknowledging Tommy's incredible courage. Hashtags like real-life hero and brave little boy trended online, drawing attention not only to the case but also to broader issues surrounding domestic violence. Despite the growing spotlight, Keanu remained humble, deflecting praise whenever possible. When asked about his involvement, he simply said, "Anyone would have done the same thing. The real hero here is Tommy. He trusted me enough to speak up, and because of that, his mom is getting the help she needs." For Tommy, the whirlwind of activity proved both overwhelming and comforting. At the hospital, nurses and doctors treated him with kindness, offering toys and snacks to keep him occupied while they monitored his mother's progress. Child Protective Services arrived to assess the family's situation, ensuring Tommy would be safe once Sarah recovered. Though the process was daunting, Tommy found solace in knowing that people cared about him and his mom. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town, Keanu returned to the hospital. He brought along a stuffed animal, a small bear wearing a superhero cape, and handed it to Tommy with a smile. "This guy's pretty brave," Keanu joked. "Just like you." Tommy hugged the bear tightly, his eyes lighting up with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "For everything." Keanu knelt beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to thank me, buddy. You're the one who made all this happen. Your mom is going to get better because of you." As they sat together in the quiet hospital room, Waiting for Sarah to regain consciousness, Keanu couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. What had started as a simple trip to McDonald's had turned into something far greater, a reminder of the power of compassion, courage, and community. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging for Tommy and his mother, Keanu knew they wouldn't have to face it alone. Together they had sparked a chain reaction of hope and healing that would ripple outward, touching countless lives in ways no one could have anticipated. The days following the incident were a whirlwind of activity, not just for Tommy and his mother, Sarah, but also for Keanu Reeves. News outlets across the country picked up the story, turning it into a national conversation about domestic violence, bravery, and the unexpected ways ordinary people can make extraordinary impacts. But while headlines celebrated Keanu as a hero, he remained steadfast in deflecting the attention back to Tommy. "He's the real star here," Keanu told reporters during one of the rare interviews he agreed to give. "That little boy trusted me when he needed help the most, and because of him, his mom is alive today." Despite his modesty, Keanu's actions resonated deeply with the public. People marveled at how someone so famous could remain so grounded, stepping in without hesitation when many others might have turned away. Social media was flooded with messages of gratitude, admiration, and even calls for Keanu to be recognized officially for his role in saving Sarah's life. Memes began circulating online, depicting Keanu as a modern-day superhero, complete with a cape made out of McDonald's napkins. The internet had spoken. Keanu wasn't just an actor. He was proof that kindness and courage weren't confined to movie scripts. For Sarah and Tommy, however, the aftermath of the rescue was far more complicated. After waking up in the hospital, Sarah found herself surrounded by doctors, nurses, and child protective services workers who wanted to ensure her safety and her son's moving forward. Though groggy from pain medication, she remembered fragments of what had happened before losing consciousness. Her memories were hazy, but the guilt and fear were crystal clear. She apologized repeatedly to Tommy, tears streaming down her face as she promised him things would change. "I'm so sorry, baby," she whispered, holding his hand tightly. "Mommy should have been stronger. I should have protected you." Tommy, still clutching the stuffed bear Keanu had given him, shook his head fiercely. "You're gonna get better now," he said with determination beyond his years. "And we'll be okay. Uncle Keanu said so." The nickname, Uncle Keanu, stuck almost immediately. To Tommy, the actor wasn't just a stranger who had helped him. He was family. Keanu visited the hospital regularly, bringing books, toys, and snacks to keep Tommy entertained while Sarah recovered. He listened patiently as Sarah shared pieces of her story, offering words of encouragement and support, without judgment. It was evident that Keanu genuinely cared, not because he sought recognition or praise, but because he understood the importance of showing up for those in need. As the investigation into Greg, Sarah's partner, continued, details emerged that painted a troubling picture. Friends and acquaintances described him as volatile and controlling, prone to sudden outbursts of anger. Court records revealed previous arrests related to disorderly conduct, though none had escalated to charges involving domestic violence. This time, however, there was no denying the severity of his actions. With overwhelming evidence against him, including witness testimonies, medical reports, and security footage capturing his hurried escape, Greg faced multiple felony charges, including aggravated assault and endangerment of a child. While the legal proceedings moved forward, Sarah and Tommy began rebuilding their lives. Child Protective Services worked closely with them, ensuring they had access to resources like counseling, housing assistance, and financial aid. A local women's shelter offered temporary accommodation, providing a safe space where Sarah could focus on healing without fear of retaliation. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. Keanu played a key role in connecting Sarah with these resources. Using his influence and connections, he reached out to organizations specializing in domestic violence prevention, helping secure funding and support for her case. He also encouraged her to share her story publicly, if she felt ready, emphasizing the potential impact it could have on raising awareness about abuse. "Your voice matters," he told her gently during one of their conversations. What you've been through isn't your fault, and speaking out could help other families like yours. At first, Sarah hesitated. Talking about her experiences felt daunting, especially knowing how vulnerable it might make her feel. But as she watched Tommy grow more confident and resilient each day, she realized the importance of breaking the silence. If sharing her story could prevent another child from feeling trapped or afraid, then it was worth it. Slowly, she began opening up, not just to Keanu, but to counselors, advocates, and eventually the media. Her decision to speak out inspired countless others. Survivors of domestic violence reached out to express their gratitude, sharing their own stories of struggle and survival. Support groups formed online, creating communities of strength and solidarity. Local businesses donated goods and services. Two shelters and fundraising campaigns raised thousands of dollars to assist families in need. What started as a quiet moment between a young boy and a kind-hearted actor blossomed into a movement, a testament to the ripple effect of compassion and action. Amid all the changes, Tommy continued to thrive. His bond with Keanu deepened, transforming into something akin to a mentorship. During their visits, Keanu taught him card tricks, shared stories from his own childhood, and encouraged him to dream big. "You know," Keanu said one afternoon as they sat together in the hospital garden, "you remind me of myself when I was your age. Brave, curious, and full of heart." Tommy grinned, puffing out his chest proudly. "Do you think I could be a superhero too?" "Absolutely," Keanu replied with a wink. "In fact, I think you already are." Their friendship became a source of joy and inspiration for everyone around them. Nurses stopped by just to catch a glimpse of the unlikely duo laughing and playing cards. Other patients smiled as they passed, finding comfort in the sight of such genuine connection. Even Sarah noticed a shift within herself, drawing strength from her son's resilience and Keanu's unwavering support. By the time Sarah was discharged from the hospital, she and Tommy had secured a new apartment through a transitional housing program. It was small but cozy, filled with donated furniture and personal touches that made it feel like home. On moving day, Keanu showed up with pizza and balloons, surprising them both. "Welcome to your fresh start," he said, handing Tommy a box of pepperoni slices. "This place has good vibes." Sarah hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face once again. But this time, they were tears of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "You've done so much for us." Keanu shrugged, brushing off her thanks with characteristic humility. "Just doing my part," he said with a smile. "Besides, I'm not going anywhere. We're family now, remember?" And in that moment, standing amidst boxes and balloons, surrounded by laughter and love, Sarah and Tommy truly believed it. They weren't alone anymore. Thanks to a chance encounter at McDonald's, they had found not only safety and stability, but also a lifelong friend who reminded them that heroes exist in real life, and sometimes they wear hoodies and eat cheeseburgers. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Keanu Reeves, Tommy, and Sarah grew stronger, becoming a cornerstone of their new lives. The quiet moments they shared, whether it was playing board games in their cozy apartment or taking walks in the park, were filled with laughter, trust, and healing. For Sarah and Tommy, Keanu wasn't just a kind stranger who had stepped in during their darkest hour. He had become part of their family, someone they could rely on no matter what. Keanu made it a point to stay involved in their journey, checking in regularly and offering help whenever needed. He didn't do it for recognition or praise. He did it because he genuinely cared. When Sarah struggled to navigate the complexities of starting over, Keanu listened patiently, sharing advice from his own experiences of overcoming challenges. "Life throws curveballs sometimes," he told her one evening as they sat together at the kitchen table. "But you're tougher than you think. And you've got Tommy and me cheering you on every step of the way." Tommy, meanwhile, continued to thrive under Keanu's guidance. The actor introduced him to hobbies like drawing, chess, and even skateboarding, encouraging him to explore his interests and build confidence. On weekends, They'd visit nearby parks or museums, turning simple outings into adventures that sparked curiosity and wonder. Tommy began opening up more, sharing stories about school, his friends, and his dreams for the future. His favorite dream? Becoming a firefighter. "I want to save people, just like you saved Mommy," he told Keanu earnestly during one of their trips to the local fire station. Sarah watched these interactions with a mix of gratitude and awe. She saw how much Keanu meant to her son, not just as a role model but as a source of stability and joy. It was clear that Tommy looked up to him, often referring to him as Uncle Keanu in conversations with classmates and teachers. At parent-teacher meetings, Sarah proudly recounted how Keanu had helped them rebuild their lives, emphasizing the importance of kindness and community. Teachers noticed a positive change in Tommy too. He was more engaged in class, more willing to speak up, and less hesitant to ask for help when he needed it. But Keanu didn't stop there. Knowing firsthand how difficult it could be to escape cycles of abuse, he used his platform to raise awareness about domestic violence. With Sarah's permission, he shared snippets of their story during interviews and public appearances, highlighting the courage it took for Tommy to speak up and the critical role bystanders can play in preventing tragedies. "It's easy to look away," Keanu said during a charity event hosted by a domestic violence prevention organization. "But looking away doesn't make the problem go away. Sometimes, all it takes is listening, really listening, to someone who needs help." His words resonated deeply with audiences, inspiring many to take action in their own communities. Donations poured into shelters and support programs, funding everything from counseling services to job training initiatives for survivors. Local schools implemented workshops aimed at teaching children how to recognize signs of abuse and seek help safely. Social media campaigns gained momentum, using hashtags like "Listen Like Keanu" and "Break the Silence" to encourage open conversations about domestic violence. Sarah herself became an advocate, joining Keanu at events and speaking candidly about her experiences. Though it wasn't easy reliving the trauma, she found solace in knowing her voice could inspire others to break free from abusive situations. "For so long I felt trapped," she admitted during a panel discussion. "I thought I deserved what happened to me. But meeting Keanu and seeing how much love and support we've received since then has shown me that I'm worth fighting for. And if my story helps even one person feel less alone, then it's worth sharing." Their combined efforts created waves of change, not just locally, but nationally. Lawmakers began discussing ways to strengthen protections for victims of domestic violence, including increased funding for shelters and stricter penalties for offenders. Celebrities and influencers joined the cause, amplifying Sarah and Keanu's message through their platforms. What had started as a single act of bravery in a McDonald's parking lot had grown into a movement, a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and collaboration. Despite the growing attention, Keanu remained humble, always redirecting praise back to Sarah and Tommy. "They're the real heroes," he insisted during an interview. "I just happened to be there when Tommy needed someone to listen. Anyone else would have done the same thing." Sarah smiled at his modesty, shaking her head. "You're being too hard on yourself," she teased lightly. "Not everyone would have dropped everything to call 911 or stayed with us until help arrived. You went above and beyond, and we'll never forget that." Their friendship extended beyond advocacy work. Holidays became special occasions for the trio, marked by shared meals, gifts, and laughter. For Christmas, Keanu surprised Tommy with a custom-made firefighter helmet, complete with his name engraved on the side. "Now you're officially ready to save the world," he joked, ruffling the boy's hair as he tried it on. Tommy beamed with pride, declaring it the best present ever. Even quieter moments carried significance. On rainy afternoons, they'd gather around the dining table to play card games or assemble puzzles, finding comfort in each other's company. During one such afternoon, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. "I never thought we'd get here," she admitted softly, glancing at Tommy, who was engrossed in building a tower out of blocks. "There were times when I felt like giving up, but now, I see hope everywhere." Keanu nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Hope wasn't something tangible, it couldn't be held or measured, but it was unmistakable in the way Tommy laughed, in the strength Sarah showed every day, and in the connections they'd forged along the way. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were thriving, thanks in large part to the bond they shared. As spring approached, bringing warmer weather and longer days, Sarah decided it was time to give back. Inspired by the support they'd received, she volunteered at the women's shelter where she and Tommy had stayed briefly after leaving the hospital. She helped organize donation drives, led art therapy sessions for children, and offered guidance to other survivors navigating similar journeys. Watching her transform pain into purpose filled Keanu with pride. "You're amazing, you know that?" he told her one evening after picking Tommy up from soccer practice. "What you're doing, it's changing lives." Sarah blushed, brushing off the compliment. "We're all just trying our best," she replied. "And honestly, having you and Tommy by my side makes everything easier." That sense of unity defined their relationship. No matter the challenges they faced, whether it was adjusting to a new routine, dealing with setbacks, or simply managing the ups and downs of life, they tackled them together. Keanu wasn't just a mentor or a friend, he was family, and for Sarah and Tommy, that knowledge was priceless. By the end of the year, their story had touched countless lives, proving that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can create ripples of change. From the moment Tommy whispered those fateful words to Keanu in McDonald's, their paths had intertwined in ways neither could have predicted. Together, they had turned tragedy into triumph, fear into hope, and strangers into family. Their journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. They would face whatever came next side by side, forever grateful for the chance encounter that brought them together. As time went on, the impact of that fateful day in McDonald's continued to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond Sarah, Tommy, and Keanu. What had started as a quiet moment between a frightened child and a compassionate stranger blossomed into something much larger, a legacy of kindness, courage, and hope that inspired people around the world. Keanu Reeves remained deeply involved in Sarah and Tommy's lives, but he also expanded his efforts to address the broader issue of domestic violence. He partnered with organizations dedicated to helping survivors, using his fame to shine a light on resources available to those in need. Together, they launched campaigns aimed at educating communities about recognizing signs of abuse and encouraging victims to seek help. One initiative, called Listen Like Keanu, focused specifically on teaching children how to speak up when they felt unsafe. Schools across the country adopted the program, incorporating age-appropriate lessons into their curriculums. Teachers reported that students were more willing to talk about difficult topics, knowing there were adults who would listen without judgment. For Tommy, this newfound visibility brought both challenges and opportunities. At school, he became known as the boy who saved his mom, which initially made him feel self-conscious. Some kids teased him while others looked at him with admiration, but with Keanu's guidance, Tommy learned to embrace his role as an accidental advocate. During a school assembly, he stood before his classmates and shared his story, not because he wanted attention, but because he hoped it might inspire someone else to find their voice. "If I can do it, so can you," he said, clutching the firefighter helmet Keanu had given him. "Just tell someone you trust you don't have to face scary things alone." His words struck a chord, not just with his peers, but with teachers and parents as well. The principal invited Sarah to speak at subsequent assemblies, sharing her perspective as a survivor. Her talks were raw and honest, yet filled with hope. She emphasized the importance of seeking help early and reminded everyone that no one deserved to live in fear. By the end of the school year, several families had reached out to local shelters after hearing Sarah's story, proving that even small acts of bravery could lead to big changes. Meanwhile, Sarah found strength she never knew she had. Volunteering at the women's shelter gave her purpose, allowing her to channel her pain into something positive. She organized workshops for survivors, teaching them practical skills like resume writing and budgeting, while also offering emotional support. Her presence was a source of comfort for many women who saw her as proof that life could get better after abuse. "You're stronger than you think," she often told them. And you're not alone. There are people who care about you and want to help. Her advocacy work caught the attention of local media, leading to interviews and speaking engagements. Though public speaking didn't come naturally to her, Sarah grew more confident each time she shared her story. She realized that by being vulnerable, she was giving others permission to do the same. One evening, after delivering a heartfelt speech at a community event, a young woman approached her with tears in her eyes. "I've been too scared to leave my partner," she confessed. "But hearing your story makes me believe I can do it. Thank you." Moments like these reminded Sarah why she kept pushing forward. Every tear shed, every hug exchanged, and every life touched reinforced her belief that change was possible, even in the darkest of times. Keanu, too, continued to use his platform to amplify their message. His social media posts about domestic violence prevention garnered millions of views, sparking conversations worldwide. Celebrities and influencers joined the cause, sharing stories of their own experiences or encouraging fans to support local shelters. Companies donated funds and resources, ensuring that organizations had the tools they needed to assist survivors. Even politicians took notice, proposing legislation to improve protections for victims and hold abusers accountable. Despite the widespread recognition, Keanu remained humble, always quick to remind people that he was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. "This isn't about me," he said during a televised interview. "It's about all of us working together to create a safer, kinder world. If my actions can inspire someone to step in when they see someone in need, then I've done my job." His humility only endeared him further to the public. Fans began referring to him as the real-life superhero, a nickname that stuck despite his protests. Merchandise featuring his likeness, t-shirts, mugs, and posters, raised thousands of dollars for domestic violence charities. Local businesses hosted fundraisers in his honor, drawing crowds eager to contribute to the cause. It seemed that everywhere Keanu went, he left behind a trail of goodwill and gratitude. Back home, Tommy continued to thrive. Now 7 years old, he was excelling in school, earning praise from teachers for his creativity and leadership. His dream of becoming a firefighter hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. Keanu arranged for Tommy to visit a local fire station, where firefighters welcomed him warmly, letting him try on gear and climb aboard the truck. For Tommy, it was a dream come true. "Someday I'll save people like you saved my mom," he told Keanu later that day, his eyes shining with determination. Sarah watched her son with pride, marveling at how resilient he'd become. The shadows of their past still lingered occasionally, but they no longer defined them. Instead, they served as reminders of how far they'd come, and how much they owed to the man who had stepped into their lives when they needed him most. 1. Crisp autumn afternoon. Keanu surprised Sarah and Tommy with tickets to a special screening of one of his latest films. The theater was packed with fans, many of whom cheered when Keanu walked in holding Tommy's hand. After the movie ended, he invited them on stage for a brief Q&A session. When asked what inspired him to become such a vocal advocate for domestic violence prevention, Keanu turned to Tommy and smiled. "This little guy right here," he said, placing a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "He reminded me that sometimes all it takes is one brave act to change everything." The audience erupted into applause, moved by the sincerity in his voice. As they left the theater that night, Sarah wrapped her arms around Keanu in a tight hug. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "For everything." Keanu shook his head, smiling softly. "No, thank you. You've shown me what true strength looks like. And Tommy, well, he's taught me that heroes aren't born. They're made." Years later, when Tommy graduated high school as valedictorian, he delivered a speech that brought the entire auditorium to its feet. Standing tall in his cap and gown, he recounted the day he'd whispered those life-changing words to Keanu Reeves in McDonald's. "That moment changed everything for me and my mom," he said, his voice steady and strong. "It showed me that even the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. So today I want to say thank you to my mom for her courage, to Uncle Keanu for listening, and to everyone here for reminding me that we're never truly alone. As the crowd cheered, Sarah wiped away tears, beaming with pride. Beside her, Keanu clapped louder than anyone, his heart swelling with joy. In that moment, surrounded by love and celebration, they knew their journey had come full circle. They had faced unimaginable hardship, but through kindness, courage, and connection, they had built a future filled with hope. And though their paths had intersected by chance, their bond endured, a testament to the power of humanity and the extraordinary impact of ordinary moments.